Hello and welcome to IQ session number 28.
28.
When life gives you lemons. Now, Matt doesn't really talk about cancer very often. He's a beautiful human where he doesn't let things that have happened to him define him, which is incredible, a beautiful trait that Matt has. However, whenever Matt brings out the C-bomb word, the cancer word, you know you're about to get some gold or you're about to get a lesson. For example, if I have man flu, Matt will love to respond with, oh, it's kind of like that time I had cancer. But my response is always, just because I haven't had cancer. But we are very, very privileged to get to hear a bit of his story and the lessons that kind of come from having a challenge that like that gets thrown at you to really give you perspective on life. And especially at a time like now where, it's challenging for a lot of people. It's different, it's unusual, it's uncomfortable. But yeah, I'd like to present my husband.
Well,
Everybody, Matt Dean.
Thank you, Sheridan. What a beautiful introduction. Just spoken so well. And I do. Sheridan's completely right. I don't like to generally talk about it, but if I do talk about it, it's generally because the people or the person I'm around is probably complaining about something and has lost their way a little bit with the complaint. So I generally throw it because when people hear that word cancer, they tend to shut down pretty quick. They get a bit intimidated by it. And I don't do it to make the person feel small. I say it to make the person have perspective. And I'll talk a little bit about that later on when we get into the guts of it. But before that, I'm going to talk a little bit about how I came into getting cancer because it was, like Sheridan said, I was 24. I was probably in the best condition of my life. I was super fit. I had everything going, living life pretty hard but playing really hard too. So externally, I looked great, like physically. If you saw me, you'd think that dude's super fit, he's super healthy, he's super happy. And I was really, really happy. The challenge was I was partying really hard on the weekend. So I get to the weekend and I would just rip into the drink and do that sort of stuff and constantly
No
partying.
drugs, just drinking.
Yeah. Thank you.
Just that sounded like you were like full on like Coke. He wasn't.
But what I was saying was that the party lifestyle that I was around, it gave me, my internal self was pretty acidic. It was very terrible actually. So I had this contrast, had super looked good, but internally I was rotting. And that's the easiest way to describe it. Anyway, in this one particular year when I was 24, I was playing representative footy, all that sort of stuff there, and reaching all these high grades, had a great year of sport. And it got to the end of the year, I played my last game. It was the New Zealand Universities game. It was against Australian university team. And we played this big game, massive. We just lost in the last seconds of the game. It was huge, big night on the drink. And the very next day, my body just went boom. And it just stopped. And I just got sick in like seconds. It was ridiculous. The moment I got back to my house, I was coughing. I had this flu and my body was just so broken down from what was going on inside. I just assumed that I'd had such a big year of sport that it was time for it to stop and have a breather. And I was happy to run out the cold and do all that sort of stuff and let it go because I'd finished sport for the year and I wasn't going to get back into it until January. So this has all happened around September. And I'm really, really sick at the moment. And it's just a flu in my head. I thought, just get on with it, get back to work and get going. So I went about it. 2 weeks passes and I'm still sick. I'm no better. And I was like, that's weird. I usually am recovered from a cold pretty quickly if I get one. And so what happened is I went to the doctor reluctantly because I don't like going to the doctor ever. If I don't have to, that is. And I went to the doctor, said to them, and they said, look, you got bronchitis, take these antibiotics, you'll be fine. And I was like, cool, sweet, sounds good. Took the antibiotics, 2 weeks later, still sick and probably worse actually. And so I went back to the doctor and said, look, it's not working. What is it? I've also got this rash. My body had developed this rash all over my body. Every time something touched me, it would welt. And I went back again and the guy goes, oh, you must be allergic to your washing powder and take these antihistamines to stop the scratching. Now the antihistamines stopped the scratching. I wasn't itchy anymore. But the fact that he said that it was my washing powder that I'd used forever, all of a sudden now I'm allergic to it. It was just a bit left field. So anyway, went again, and I kept getting sicker and sicker. And so I was just getting a bit over doctors at the time. Then I went to a wedding, and when I went to the wedding, I had one toast with the champagne, and I had one beer, and then I just ate the food, and that was it, because I just didn't feel right to be at this wedding, and left early. So I drove back, got out of the car, and I just felt sick, and I just vomited, and it was terrible. Like, it was a horrible feeling. Walked inside, and everyone thought I'd just been beaten up because I'd been vomiting blood. So all this blood was out my face, it was over my white shirt from the wedding, and I didn't even notice. So I was like, Jesus, I've got to get to that emergency. So we shoot off to the emergency. I walk in there, hop on the bed, finally get checked in, and they run some blood tests and stuff like this. And then I get a lecture from the doctor, and they're saying, why are you here? You're taking up beds. It's a waste of time. And I said to them, I said pretty much like, I was vomiting blood. To me, that's a pretty big deal. Surely that's a reason to come and see you guys. And he said, look, you've got abnormally low white blood cells, but other than that, there's no reason for you to be here. Go away. You're taking up beds. So he basically kicked me out of the hospital, and I'm fuming. I didn't get angry, but I was angry now, like, because I was sick of people not telling me what it was. And so I thought, all right, I'm stuff it. I won't go to the doctor. And someone said, just get a second opinion. So, all right, I go to a different lady, a different doctor, same practice, went and saw her, and she was really good. And this is why I don't overcomplicate things, because she's a doctor, and she said, look, Maddie, medicine's simple. In its simplistic form, symptoms lead to an outcome. Your symptom is so broad, it could be many outcomes. So we can't pinpoint it. And to me, that made sense. I'm like, cool, get it, got a flu, get over it. I'll run it out. In my head, I'm never going back to a doctor. I checked them out. She was lovely, really nice, really caring. And just as I walked out the door, I turned around. I said, I found this lump here in my neck. Do you know what that would be? And she said that it went like that. She knew exactly what it was. The moment I said that, it just pointed to the outcome. So she said, cool, what we'll do is get you in for a biopsy the next day. I get the biopsy at 10 a.m. Took the day off work, get the biopsy. I'm just hanging out with my mates on the other side of the city. She calls me, gets the results from the biopsy that afternoon. And it was 5 to 6. They close at 6 o'clock. I was on the other side of the city. And she said, I've got your results. Can you come in? I said, look, you guys shut. I'm miles away. I'm not going to get there in time. And she goes, I'll keep the practice open for you. So I'm in my head thinking, this ain't good. But the people in the car have got no idea. So in my head, I'm processing what's going on. I turn in there. Of course, I walk in. She says, Maddie, you got cancer. I thanked her. It was the first thing I said. I said, thank you so much, because it was the best news I could actually hear, because it gave me an answer to why I was so sick. It was no one else could tell me why I was so sick. So I was getting frustrated. I was getting angry. I was getting probably a bit vicious towards the medical profession. And it wasn't anything really to do with them. It was just, I wanted answers and I couldn't have it. So I was getting frustrated. And I finally got this answer. The catch was, I said to the first thing I said after that was, is it life-threatening? And she goes, it depends on how early we get it. And I said, well, I've just been coming to see you guys for about 6 or 7 weeks. I don't know how long I've had it for. And she goes, all right, we'll get you in to see a doctor and do all the next part of it. The kicker in that one was every radiology place that I had to go and see, everything I needed to see was a waiting list of about 8 weeks. Every place in New Zealand, it didn't matter which one you rang, it had an 8-week waiting list. So I'm like, if I get it early, I'm okay. But if I don't, I'm not. And I had to wait another 8 weeks on already pretty much the 8 weeks that I'd done. And to me, that was adding up pretty quick, that's getting on. And so I'm like, all right, okay, cool. So I processed this in my head, and then I went about it. And then I thought, I need to tell people, because I'm going to get pretty sick pretty quick, because I was already declining pretty fast anyway. And so I called certain people, friends and family and stuff like that. And then I called mum reluctantly. I wasn't going to call her. I was just going to go about it without telling her. But turns out the best thing I ever did, she's a worrier, that's why, just so you know. Turned out the best thing I ever did was tell mum, because she rang our GP who knew a person and got me shortlisted. I just had to be up there in 3 days to get to the hospital, to get shortlisted and get into this chemotherapy regime. Anyway, long story short, went through all that sort of stuff. Chemotherapy went for 6 months. I think it was about 6 months. And then I had a month of radiation and went through all that sort of stuff there. Initially, chemo was easy. It wasn't even that hard, but eventually it just smashes you. Like, just boom. Every time you have it, bang, you're just back to zero. You just can't wake up. You're just lethargic. You're just aching. You're constantly hungover. That's the feeling I can describe it. And all I ever want to do when I'm hungover is eat KFC. So all I'm doing is eating crappy foods, and I'm not moving, because everyone's saying, do not move. You need to rest. Everyone in my circle is saying, just rest. And I'm like, all right, I'll rest. So I started sitting on my ass and I started watching TV and I started watching every DVD I could possibly watch. And Netflix wasn't around back then. So it was just watching whatever I could do, sitting, justifying it was okay, having people do stuff for me, all this sort of stuff that led to me becoming really obese. I got really fat from it. Most people go skinny. I went fat because all I did was stop and I ate. And I felt sorry for myself big time for a long period there. I'll shoot forward and get to the end of it. And other than going through all those emotions that I went through, and I'll explain it a little bit on the steps I'm going to tell you. But what I learned, what I got from it at the other end was the people in your life who are meant to be in your life come forward, and the people who are in your life for whatever reason step back. And that was one of the biggest things. And they always say it when you go through the chemotherapy and stuff like that. People don't know how to be around you, so they step away. It's not because they want to offend you and they don't like you. It's just they don't know how to be around you. But the friends and the families who front up, they're your true friends. They're genuinely the ones that turn up when you don't expect them to turn up. And they front up and they see you and they make you do stuff. And I'll share a little story about my mate. He turned up one time. I was super in the rawest of raw. I had no energy. I was really weak and all that sort of stuff. He came and said, cool, mate, we're going fishing. I'm like, oh, yeah, cool, man, awesome. Let's go fishing, you know. And I didn't really want to go, but he put me in the car kind of thing. So get him, hopped in, made me climb in the boat, made me do everything. Like he wouldn't do one thing for me at all. So, mate, can you pull this fish? I just can't get this thing in. He's like, mate, you're going to do it and get going. I was like, whoa, that's not a good friend telling me what to do. He was one of my most dearest friends. He's my best mate. But the reason he was my friend is because he stopped letting people do stuff for me and he told me to do it myself. And I'm going to go into that in a little bit about just how I think. But that moment for me, when he did that, was my kind of turning point. So I started to turn. Then I went home that day and had this little bit of I was a little bit pissed off because he made me do everything. The next day I got up and I went to the mirror and I just looked at myself and, you know, your hair's going, your eyebrows are gone. I'm whiter than white because you can't go in the sun. I'm overweight. And I'm just looking at myself and I just thought, wow. And I jumped on the scales. The heaviest I'd ever been was 99.8 kilos. And I was just embarrassed. I was like, that is just ridiculous.
And you got to remember, put that into perspective as well. He was just in the best physical condition of his life coming off the end of that footy season.
Yeah.
Shredded, healthy, fit, strong, tan, all that kind of thing. And then you go to that.
And it was just sick but self-inflicted. You know, I could have said it's the chemo. It wasn't chemo. Chemo doesn't make me eat KFC. Chemo doesn't make me sit on my ass. I made those decisions because I listened to the people in my life who thought they were caring for me. They were cradling me. They were looking after me. They were coddling me. You know, mum, my family, my really close knit family, they thought they had to do that and I loved it because I was like, yeah, being careful. Worst thing I could have done was let them do it. And so I always say, if someone's going through chemo and going through cancer, don't do things for them. Make them do it. Because they need the independence and they need to keep fighting. And to fight, you need to move. Stagnation creates death. Like, that's the sad part about it. If you're stopping, you're not growing. You've got to be moving. You've got to constantly be moving. Doesn't mean you have to go out and do marathons and sprints and stuff, but you have to constantly move, show your body you're still there. You've got to fight the fight. And that's really what it comes down to. So my mate came in, that pivotal moment. The next day I hopped on the scales, got embarrassed, and I just started my campaign. I was like, no, I'm losing this weight. And I got into it. I just started, rolled the sleeves up, and I just got punching and got moving. And I just started exercising, watched what I ate, stopped eating all the KFC, did that stuff. And I lost 17 kilograms from that point for the next 12 weeks. I did over a 12-week period. I lost 17 kgs. So it turned back to pretty good shape. Wasn't my best shape, but I was better than I was. And then in that moment, I just started setting goals. I started going, you know what, time's time to start doing some things that I wanted to do, because it's that whole death knocking on your door thing. It's like, what have I done if it does take my life? And it's a horrible question to ask, but it's how you should live your life, because especially with something like a coronavirus that's ripping through town at the moment. And, you know, it should be teaching you not to be afraid of it, but to be excited by it and go, man, I hope I'm living my life full, because if it did take my life, have I lived a life? Or have I just gotten by and been afraid of everything and just tiptoed around and didn't want to offend things and didn't want to do what I wanted to do? If you go around living that way, you never truly live. So cancer for me, massive wake-up call, massive kick up the backside. But I was very grateful for having it, because if I didn't have that, I would have rocked through life exactly like I just described to you, because that's all I knew. It was just what everyone else is doing. And all cancer did was give me perspective on there's another side. Because if you do die and you haven't lived what you should be doing with your life and charging and trying to change the world or do what you want to do, then you truly never really live. Like, so I started traveling, I started doing all this stuff. I wanted to run a marathon. I always said I was going to run a marathon, never did it. And I went and did it, but I didn't train for it because everyone said, you can't do that. I was like, I'll do it and I won't train. And I did it without training for a marathon. I went out and ran it. It wasn't fast. It wasn't beautiful. It wasn't pretty. It was horrible. But I did it to prove a point. You don't have to let people decide your future.
And you did it in a Batman suit.
That was just because I wrote my mate in. I dressed up as Batman. He dressed up as Robin. He was just the same. I said, man, I need your hand. I'm going to run a marathon. You want to do it? And he goes, do I have to train? I was like, I'm not. He goes, done. I'm in. So we rocked up and we did this event together. He's the type of friend you want in the trenches with you. He's just going, I'm in, man. Let's do it. He came for the journey, not wanting to outdo me, just to be there with me and just to achieve a goal. So again, it's just finding those people who better you and believe in you and want to come for the ride to champion you, not to tell you what you can't do. And man, when I crossed that line, the first people I called were those people who said I could not do it. So, hey man, I'm just down here. I'm at the finish line of the marathon, just finished it. Awesome, blah, blah, blah. They have to eat their words. And I'm in utter pain, but they would never know that. Okay. So that was kind of how my life changed. So cancer for me, massive kick up the ass, which is why when I hear people complaining about a flu, a sniffle, a cough, oh my God, seriously, just suck it up and get moving, because that is ridiculous to complain about those things, regardless of if it's a man flu or whatever it is, it's a cold. And there is so much more worse in the world. And I'm going to come into that now. So that's my general story. There's so much more to it, but I'm just giving you a dusted copy, and I'm going to get into some points, because the whole title of this thing is when life throws you lemons or tough situations, the saying goes, turn it to lemonade. If you don't like lemonade, make it lemon pie. It doesn't matter, but do something with the lemons. Make a little hat if you don't want to eat it, but do something with the lemon, because the reality is the lemon is just a challenge. It's nothing more than that. It's not, it doesn't define you. It just challenges you to see what you're going to do. And this is my steps. I got 6 steps. First one, number 1, I went through this. It's stop having a pity party. Stop being woe is me. Stop being, oh, it's just not fair. The stuff always happens to me. Oh, stop. That is the first thing you have to do. When a life throws you a lemon, you keep using that story of, oh, this stuff always happens to me. And you open with that, your brain goes, yes, it does. It agrees with everything you say. So if you open that sentence when this stuff happens to you, it's agreeing straight from the get-go. So it's actually telling you, yeah, you do. It always happens. Yeah, buddy, keep going, pal. We're going to get all this bad shit happen to us. Sorry about the language, little kids. But the reality is that you need to stop having the pity party. Now, it's okay to be frustrated. You would have heard at the start of the story, I was angry at the doctors. I was frustrated. But I didn't stay there forever. I moved on past that phase. I didn't get angry. Oh, doctors. I just moved on past it. So a bit of advice for stopping the pity party. This is the best piece of advice we've ever been given from our dear friend, Dr. Ben Carvoso. He said, it's okay to have a bad time, a bad day, a challenging thing, be frustrated, sad, anxious, all those things, but give it a timeline. And you give it a time. Like, I'm going to be depressed now for the next 1 hour,
but do it well.
Oh, depress the crap out of it. Like, be so depressed that you couldn't be any more depressed.
or be angry and punch a hole in the wall. Like, if you're gonna do it well.
But you've only got the hour.
Don't punch a hole in the wall.
But you've only got the hour. So give yourself a cutoff date. And my favorite is, you're not allowed to pass midnight that night. Like, as of midnight that night, you can't have any pity, any self-loathing, nothing like that. It is done with the moment it hits midnight. You can't roll it to the next day. So many people take it with them. They say, oh, yesterday. And they live there. It's like, leave it there. Okay. So first one, stop the pity party, set a timer, cut yourself off from it, move forward. Step number 1. Step number 2, don't worry. We use this one a lot because it was such great advice we heard one time from one of our dear mentor friends. It's not our own words, it's his words. And it was, why worry? Why would you even bother worrying? Because there's only really 2 things that can come from it. Why are you worrying? Oh, because of such and such. Cool. Can you change it? Yes. Great. Then why are you worried? Because you can change it. Go and change it. Can you change it? No, I can't change it. Well, why are you worrying? You can't change it. So stop worrying. It only goes one of two ways. You can either change it or you can't. So suck it up and change it or don't. But you don't have to live there. Don't worry. Wasted energy, wasted direction of time thinking about worrying and being anxious and depressed about things because of worrying.
No one ever changed or discovered or did anything with worrying. Worrying literally is the most pointless thing in the world.
And it's so easy to be worried about uncertainty and things in the world, especially at the moment with the virus deal going on at the moment. But the reality is that there's nothing you can do in the scheme of the thing. So why would you worry? The only thing you can do, if you're going to change something, you can change your immune system by looking after it. Moving, eating healthier, get yourself around some happy people, surround yourself, educate yourself, do all these things, do stuff to better yourself so that you can go forth and be the best version possible, just in case it ever came to you. And I've been preaching that since the start. It's just like, make sure you're doing everything for yourself to be the best physical specimen internally and externally. Remember what I told you? My internal thing when I had cancer, rotten to the core. I treated it like garbage. I exercised like a machine and a demon in the gym, but man, I just used to feed it crap. So internally, I was really bad. I drank a lot, all that sort of stuff. So I had this toxic internal stuff, which meant that if I got sick, which cancer came into my body, my white blood cells dropped, which meant that my defense was down, which means it could come in and get me. So if I was in that state and then the coronavirus came through, that would have got me. Like I had no immune system. It was so low. So this is the crazy part. Because I wrecked it and I didn't do my part with it, I was compromising myself because I thought I was invincible and I wasn't really paying attention to it all. Step 1, stop the pity party. Step 2, don't worry. Step 3, this is one of the coolest ones, and it's a term that we've learned from a guy that we've been following, and it's called embrace the suck. Now, what that means is, it's an army term they use, which is embrace the suck. They use it in the US. I don't know if they do it here in Australia, but what it means is basically roll your sleeves up. It's going to be a shit job that has to get done, but you got to go and do it. Okay. It would be the equivalent of cleaning up the dog poo. I don't like doing it. I don't like doing it. I can put it off, but the more I put it off, the bigger it gets. The bigger it gets, the harder it gets, the longer it takes.
It doesn't go away.
It doesn't go away. I still got to do it. So you got to get out there and just do it. You got to suck it up and get on with it and go and do it. So when this lemon that is coming into your life comes in, there's things you have to do, right? You have to make better choices. You have to cut friends off. You have to do whatever it is you have to do, whatever your lemon is that came into your life. You just have to roll the sleeves up sometimes and get to work.
Because doing the right thing doesn't always feel comfortable. And there's this whole self-love and self-care thing that goes around at the moment. I think it gets thrown around without the definition, like without truth attached to it. So do what makes you happy, yes, but you still have to do what's right. And what's right isn't always comfortable or isn't always desired at that time. So, I don't want to exercise today. I don't feel like it. Well, okay, that might make you happy, but that's not what's right. What is right is to go and exercise. You'll feel better afterwards, even though it might not make you spark joy in that moment. Like, you got to sometimes just embrace the suck.
You got to embrace it, roll those sleeves up and just get to work. Like that's all you can do sometimes. You just got to go, this is shit. Sorry again, language. But you just got to go, you know what? It's just a tough time right now. I've got to push and I've got to do my part in this equation. Okay. Really simple. Just roll those sleeves up, get into it. Step number 3, embrace the suck. Step number 4, really quite cool. Get perspective. This one here, I couldn't preach this more if I tried. It was what I said to you at the start was with the cancer thing is when someone has a cold and they're complaining about, oh, my sniffles, oh, my sniffles. It's like, oh yeah, cancer. Like people have cancer and you're complaining about a sniffle. Move on, princess. Okay, that's what we're talking about there. To get perspective, people are always doing it tougher than you. When I had cancer, I wasn't moaning about having cancer because I knew when I was in the chemotherapy ward and I was sitting there, I was 24 years of age at the time, which everyone's like, oh, you're so young. When I was in the ward, there was 6-year-old kids down the other end of the ward having chemotherapy. No, they're young. I got to 24, they're only 6. Like, it's just like there's someone always doing it tougher. But you look down at the 6-year-old down the other end, they're smiling, happy, people around him, wasn't worried about things. And that's what I love about kids. They just have this imagination and everything can be possible. Yet when we get old, everything's impossible. It's hard. It's worried. And oh my God, and it gets real negative. And we worry about everything and we forget to live, which is a big one. Get perspective. And I love sharing this story. He's a dear friend of mine. His name is Chris. If you've heard it before, you get to hear it again. Lucky for you. If you haven't heard it and you're watching this from home, he's a dear friend of mine. He had a motorbike accident, went around the corner, a car came around the other side, high beamed. He had his visor down. It was a bit scratched. He couldn't see. And as he went around the corner, when the car passed, the corner turned left and he went off the back of it, and he's on the rural roads. So basically he hit, the bike flipped him and his head went straight into the strainer post, which is the biggest post in the paddock, holds all the tension on the posts. And his head hit that and he broke his neck instantly on impact. And he was face down in a paddock on the side of a road. And I think it was about 11 o'clock, and it wasn't until 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning that a nurse came home from her night shift of all people, went to the kitchen to grab a drink, saw the indicator on his bike flickering across the paddock. She ran across and saw him down there and got found there. So he's now paralyzed from the chest down. He can move his arms, but he doesn't have any fingertip movement. He was an amazing artist, and he had to reteach himself to paint with his mouth. He's probably better with his mouth than he ever was with his hands. Again, he's someone who embraced the suck. He didn't let it define him. He's like, this is just what it is. You know, and he's the nicest guy you'll ever meet. To see it happen to him, you'd go, how does that happen to him? But he just embraced it. He moved on, and now he inspires me. So he's one of my dear friends. And if I'm like, oh, my legs are sore, I'm like, he can't feel them.
So Matt did an Ironman. It was a goal for him to do an Ironman, and he did it again with no training, really. And it was really powerful. He actually did it in Chris's honor. And so when he came off, so an Ironman is nearly 4K swim, 180K bike ride. And when he came out of the transition to go into the marathon, because after all that, you then have to go and run 42.2 kilometers. And when he was coming out of transition, he actually asked me to hand him a little pack, and in that little pack had a photo of Chris, which just had on it, remember why you're doing this, just to give himself perspective. Someone who's been through cancer, someone who has perspective, but in that moment had perspective on that, to say someone's always doing it tougher. Like, you're in so much pain right now, things hurt, this is tough, you're how many hours in. It's a gift. It's honestly a gift to feel that, because what would Chris give up just to have that feeling? Seriously.
Is me complaining about sore feet, sore backs, sore shoulders, sore necks, or everything. All the things he never feels. Like, it was just perspective, and it wasn't any easier to run it. I promise you, it was horrible, but it was enough to keep me going. I was at every reason to stop was in that moment until Sheridan gave me that picture, and I was just like, it almost brought a tear to my eye. It was kind of that teary kind of, all right, suck it up, princess, and move forward. Perspective. He can't feel it. You can. It's your gift. Get going and appreciate it and move with it. Okay. And I've got a little note here. I have to do it. We have to move past our entitled lives that we live. And when challenges come in, we're so entitled. We live in such a microwave society right now that we expect everything right now. And it's stupid to think that. Like, we're so, what's the word? Not generous. We're so luxurious. What am I after here? Everything's at our fingertips right now. It's easy. Life's easy. The time we're in, we can chat to people. We don't have to go. We don't have to walk down. We don't have to change the channel anymore. We can literally just push a button. Like, everything's so easy in life right now. So we have these mediocre mindset. So that's what perspective does, is it gives you the ability that when you get your challenge, regardless of how big it is, or big or small, when you get that challenge, you can always know that there's someone doing it tough. You just have to find them and have perspective and go, all right, they're doing it worse than me. I'm going to be okay. They're still happy. I'm going to be okay. That's the process. So we've got to get rid of the entitled lives expectation of all these things we expect. Oh, I need to be happy. I need to have this. I need this. And we have this whole entitlement. But the reality is that we have this expectation. And you have to replace expectation with appreciation. So my expectation was, oh, my legs are sore. They shouldn't feel this way. I'm a fit, healthy person. My appreciation was, I can feel my legs. I can still run, I can swim, I can do all those things that he cannot do. Replace expectation with appreciation, and you watch what happens. If you implement that with your relationships, with your kids, with your relationships with your partners, and when they do something for you, but they don't do it to your standard, and they come in and they do something, and you go reprimand them for not doing it to your standard, you've missed the point, because they've attempted your standard, they haven't hit your standard, and you've reprimanded them. You've got expectation and they haven't hit it, and now you've reprimanded them. They feel about this big. What you need to do is replace that expectation and go, all right, thank you so much. That's an amazing gift that you've done for me. You're this here. And then you have to work on a way to increase their standard to your standard without reprimanding them. So replace expectation with appreciation. Oh, we're almost there, guys. Fifth one. So nice and simple, really easy. Learn from it. Oh my God, the amount of people who, when they get a challenge come into their life and have the same challenge come into their life 1 week later, have not learned from the challenge. The idea is that you learn from it and you grow from it. All learnings all challenges are learnings. They're there for you to grow and be a better person. And yes, challenges can seem to keep coming like this in your life, and it's painful and it can be a pain in the butt. But the idea is that you become better, because if you repeat the same thing over and over again, expecting a different outcome, it's the definition of insanity. It's literally your way of bashing your head against the wall. If you expect the same thing that comes into your life and you do the same thing every time, it's going to make you go nutty pretty much. So you need to learn from it. A good example of this one here, especially at the moment, is you've lost your job or something like that. It's a good time to use this time to go, all right, I lost a job. Maybe it was my fault. Maybe it wasn't. But now's the time for me to learn from it. Was it my fault? How do I improve myself so that I don't lose the next job? Maybe I was just in the wrong job. The challenge came into my life that forced me to go and get a different job so I can live happiness in my life, so I don't have to have these stupid challenges keep coming back into my life. So you need to learn from it, you need to grow from it, and you need to move through it. Last step, I promise, we're nearly there. The glue to it all. So I'm going to go quickly through them and then I'm going to finish on this last point. Number 1, stop the pity party. Number 2, don't worry. And with the stop the pity party, give yourself a time, cut yourself off from it. 2, don't worry. There's no point. Why worry? Because if you can change it, change it. If you can't, don't worry because you can't. Move on from it. Embrace the suck. Yes, it can be painful. Yes, it can be annoying. Yes, it can be like just a drawn out process. But all you do is you embrace it, roll the sleeves up. And sometimes you just got to grind. You just got to push through that part there. Get some perspective in your situation. You may think that this is the biggest thing in your world, like Sheridan said to you at the start, her colds, she felt like they were like this. And yet comparably, to cancer, it's not. It's very like this. It's pathetic in the scheme of things. But cancer in the scheme of someone who's on their deathbed is pathetic in the scheme of things. So everything's always perspective, okay? Number 5 is learn from it. Always learn from it. Always grow from it. Always go, all right, I need these challenges in my life to make me a better person, because every time you learn from a challenge, you become stronger. Internally, you become stronger. Mentally, you become stronger. You become a better person if you learn from it. If you don't learn from it, you're just going to be bashing your head against the wall, doing the same thing, getting a bit depressed every time. Last one, the key to it all, the glue. Give. You have to have a heart to serve. You have to give your time, give your money, give your resources. You have to serve other people. Jim Rohn, an amazing man, he's a philosopher. He's no longer with us, but he had this saying, help as many people as I'll read it so I don't stuff that up. Help enough people get what they want, and you can have whatever it is that you want. And just dissect that for a second. When you help people and you put that energy out, it comes back. So when you give without the expectation of something coming back, it naturally just comes back to you. The amount of times that we've donated, Sheridan and I have donated money to causes and things like that. And when most people would see the amount of money that we would donate, you'd go, wow, that's a huge amount of money. But we don't do it for that reason. We do it because of the cause and what it means for the cause to go forward and do more. But every time that happens, the reciprocating thing of it, it's doubled, if not tripled, if not quadrupled in value when it comes back. Now, we don't do it for the return. We do it, but we get the return. When you give to people, when your life is shite in that moment, you move past your drama, and you've got to find time to give to people. so that you're around people other than yourself. You're doing something for someone else, because when a challenge comes to you, it's all about you. My challenge, me, whoa, 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 I. That leads to the pity party. But if you help other people and you actually invest in other people and you help them to become a better person, to help their situation when they're doing it tough, all those sorts of things there, you become a better person. You fill yourself up with happiness. You have perspective. You have learnings. You have all those things we talked about because of helping someone else through their challenge. And you're not there to listen to their challenge. You're there to help them through their challenge. Now, when you listen to someone's challenge, or someone's venting to you and they're coming in and they're venting, that is not helping someone. That is helping them to stay in the pity party. You have to get really good at cutting off the story and going, all right, I can see you're in a pity party. You need to give yourself a time frame, give them the tool, and in 1 hour, once you've done with the pity, we'll chat. So let them go be sad, let them go do that, but don't listen to it, because there's nothing for you. Listen, let them have their pity party, cut them off, then you can go and talk to them once they've been out of it. If they bring the pity party back up, you can go, hang on a second, we said 1 hour, do it well, get it out of the system so we can talk and I can chat to you and maybe I can help you and get you through this. And those tools, I promise you, is how you get through any challenge. A lemon that's thrown at you can always be turned into something good. Whether you like lemons or not, you can do something with it that allows you to be a better person on that 6th step, which is learn to give, have a heart to serve. And it's the reason that you're moving house and Sheridan and I turn up and to help you move a house. We do it not because it's an expectation of us. We do it because we want to help you move your home. It's the reason we do client appreciation day, so that we can give to you guys to say thank you for all that you do for us by coming into our lives and enriching our lives. So we like to come to your house. It's the reason we'll come and spread the bark in your house. We'll cut your lawns. We'll wash your cars. We'll do those things because we want to serve you guys as much as we possibly can. And the byproduct of the serving is the return is tenfold. And if you've ever lived that way and you ever do that stuff there, I promise you, you'll have a life that's far more richer than any lemon that can ever be thrown to you. I didn't live in the cancer zone. I just used it as it was literally a kick up the backside. It was the thing for me that changed my life. And without it, I don't know where I was heading. I don't know where my life would be. I definitely would have been here in Melbourne. FBFM wouldn't have happened if it didn't happen to me. That was all part of my journey. I could have sat there and said, oh, woe is me. I had a friend come into my life who was definitely not like that. Gave me a kick up the backside. I got moving. I got changed. And I just started to move forward and live a really rich life. If you look at goal settings and look at things, and when I met Sheridan, obviously I found the love of my life and we got married and we have an amazing business. We love what we do. We do all this stuff. We travel the world. Of course, we can't do that right now, but we've traveled. We're counting up all the holidays we went on the other day, and it's something like over 20 or 15 odd holidays or something in the last few years since we've been together. And it's just like, we just live because you can't always just work. And because when you just work, you don't have any fulfillment in your life because you're just doing it for money, in exchange for money. And they call that prostitution when you just work for money all the time. And as much as you may not hearing that, if that's all you ever do with your life is just work and earn the money and save the money, you haven't lived. You're just saving money for what? For the death, for the amazing funeral at the other end of it. Like, you have to have a reason to do more and not let a silly life lemon derail you. I'm done. I'll keep rambling otherwise, but I just want to thank you guys so much for listening to my story, just a little bit about it. That's just a snippet of the lemons that have been thrown into my life. But that particular lemon, when it did come, it transformed my life to a totally different direction, which now, prior to cancer, I hadn't traveled anywhere in the world and done anything really other than play sport and drink. big goals back then. But life's changed because I made a decision, which is really cool. So if you have any questions, please ask them now. Flick them in the chat. Otherwise, we'll wrap it up. You can always flip me a question. Always happy to chat to you about maybe your life lemon is pretty heavy at the moment and it's pretty big and you just don't quite know how to deal with it, even with those steps. Reach out. Sometimes it just helps to have someone who's not emotionally involved in the lemon, and it's easy for them to sort of see something else that maybe you can't quite see. Whew. Well, thank you guys. Any questions? Please, 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 like I said, just throw them in. Otherwise, have a fantastic evening. I do appreciate you guys giving up your time to learn and to grow. And because, like I said, you've just been given 6 strategies. If you haven't written them down, your memory is like a sieve. You won't remember them. So I encourage you to go back, rewrite them down, have a strategy for when they come in, because life is always going to throw you challenges. And I challenge you to go find a challenge to see how you get through it. And that's how you're going to become a bigger person, a better person. That's how you grow. That's how you do more with your life, instead of just staying in the same cycle of woe is me, woe is me, woe is me. All right, legends. Well, thank you guys. Have a great evening, and I'll see you guys all next week. Thank you.